I ended up laying low for New Year's and all that stuff. I didn't want to spread my diseases. So this is my first drink of 2020, or excuse me,
Oh, well,
2021.
gosh,
So
I am honored.
I am too, man. I've been doing some digging on you for the past few hours, and I love what I see. So
Oh man, I'm glad to hear it. I appreciate you having me on. I really do. This is for us. It's just like a huge opportunity to kind of, it's not just exposure, right? But just kind of tell our story a little bit
yep,
and reach out. So I just appreciate the opportunity for sure.
yeah, man. So with that, let's do like a 2 minute elevator pitch.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean for us, it's a low cost, low risk business opportunity, specifically focused on primarily pilots. Primarily airline pilots and military pilots, right? I mean that's I did some time with the Navy. I'm a airline pilot right now, and anybody that's in that industry is fully aware how dynamic it is, right? And how volatile it can be. And clearly, the dumpster fire that was 2020 is Exhibit A, right? So for us, it kind of turned into an opportunity to provide these really a chance for people who were interested in becoming business owners, and then not just leave them out in the cold, right? But just like, hey, we're here from A to Z, right? From the entire time, we've got ongoing business support, and just trying to make that a turnkey solution as best we possibly can for folks. So it's something that I'm really excited about for 2021. I think there's a ton of opportunity coming down the line. I mean, the commercial drone operator space is just booming right now. So I think the thing that we're really trying to focus on is that there's when you look at the commercial drone space, I think you find a bunch of individuals operating by themselves, right? And that's where I think we stand to leverage. That's an opportunity for us, especially with our skill sets and our background. Getting trained and certified is a no-brainer. It's simple, right? So if we can leverage that and then also work on developing that brand name recognition, man, I think we become almost like these category creators, right? Like we're really setting the tone, I think, for the commercial drone space. So that's one of our goals for 2021. Try to get in there as best we can and just make a name for ourselves. And at the end of the day, that's going to be benefiting all of our individual bottom line. So that's what we're trying to do.
On the franchise front, so looking at your website, it looks like you guys are involved with multiple avenues of imagery, whether it be roof inspections, agriculture, mapping, real estate, marketing, and kitchen. When you sign up a potential franchisee, are they looking at maybe getting into a specific industry of imagery when they sign up, or are they looking to essentially be all inclusive there?
Yeah, more often than not, they're typically coming to us with an emphasis on one particular sector, if you will, right? So roofing or commercial marketing or real estate or agriculture, something along those lines. So they've got either a network that they can kind of tap into on their own end, that they think that there's some real business opportunities there, or maybe they've got experience in say the roofing industry or something like that. So a lot of times they have some idea of what they want to get involved with. What we're trying to do is provide the full spectrum, right? Because none of us are masters in every field, right? So but I think when we put together that network, we become pretty strong in just about all of them, right? So I think you'll find that a lot of times you become like a jack of all trades but a master of none, right? So if we've got people in Southern California working on cinematography and people in Nashville who are focused on roofing, and Tennessee, broadly speaking, agriculturally focused, or throughout Texas as well, right? Special event space too. There's so many different avenues that you can get involved with, and really what we're trying to do too is not just provide that type of turnkey solution and ongoing business support, but also the ability to collaborate with the other franchisees on a regular basis, right? So that way we're talking about best practices and, hey, how are we, what are we doing over here that's really just crushing it for us? And what's the best way to, attack marketing, and how can I tap into these clients? Those are all answers that hopefully, as our franchise network continues to grow, we've got answers for that, and I think we're getting to that point already right out of the gate. So it's kind of building that, that brain trust, if you will, right? So there's an aspect of like an intangible quality about what we're trying to do with Blue Nose that I hope that people find would be really beneficial. I mean, you can spend a lot of time, researching drone operations and how you can apply that technology in a number of different fields. And you'll quickly waste the whole weekend on the internet, right? So we're trying to make that available for people, and just right out of the gate, make sure that they know that they've got people who can assist in whatever it is that they're interested in.
Later on, I'd like to get a little more deep regarding a couple of these potential industries, but I'd like to see and discuss how you got into this business in the first place.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Well, for us, it started probably about 2014 timeframe. At the time, I was actually I was stationed in Oklahoma City with the Navy. I was a TACMO guy, so I flew E-6Bs for them, and so we worked very closely with the Air Force. So that's what brought us to Tinker in Oklahoma City. And Oklahoma, right, is tornado alley, right? I mean, it's just the roofing industry in Oklahoma is just booming always. So whether it's tornadoes or hailstorms, people are constantly concerned about their rooftops. So at that time, the ability to purchase a drone commercially had just become a thing, right? I mean, really, probably 2013 timeframe, you could actually purchase something like that. So 2014, 2015 timeframe, we were looking at, man, how could we kind of tap into this? This seems like a new market, a new industry that's got a lot of potential. So we started thinking like, well, gosh, you could literally just walk up and down the street of the whole neighborhood after a storm came through and say, hey, do you want us to check out your rooftop for you? Because nobody wants to bring out like, a 20 or 30 foot ladder and get on the rooftop themselves. So we can do it quickly, right? And we can get very close with that drone and, high quality imagery and get that over to them basically immediately if we needed to, right? So that's kind of where it started. And then fast forward about 4 or 5 years, we hadn't done anything with it at all, right? So I'd been reassigned twice with the Navy, changed careers. I went to the airlines. We had 2 kiddos. My wife changed her career up too. So we hadn't really done anything with it up until, kind of the end of 2019. Actually, I had finished up my probationary time with the airlines, so I felt pretty proficient with the Airbus. And my wife was working full time at the Children's Hospital, and our kids were in daycare. So really, the middle of the week, I wasn't doing anything, right? I was just sitting around on my tuchus, right, for 72 hours every week. So I was like, well, might as well set something up, just to do that. And man, I'm sure glad I did it when I did, because come just about 6 or 7 months later, the COVID set in, and just the whole industry just collapsed, right? So that's really kind of where it started. It transitioned into the franchising side of the house when we launched a website back in March timeframe, like late February, early March. And ultimately what happened is, we launched it, and then I had about 4 or 5 buddies from the Navy or the airlines reach out and say, how do we set up our own location? What do we do? And, at the time I was just like, hell if I know, man. Like I don't have any background in this, right? I come from the military, come from the airlines, but give me some time, I'll figure it out, and that's what we ended up doing. So we contracted with a franchise attorney here in Denver, and really the entire timeline was to have all that paperwork, have that foundation laid by the end of July, so that it would give people a couple months, really, if they were facing furlough in particular with the airlines. Like if they were looking at October 1st was going to be, hey, we're done kind of thing, it would give them a couple months head start to get their location set up. And so that's really where it started. That's how we got into franchising. And that was the whole idea, was to provide, a turnkey solution that was low cost and low risk, and really kind of collaborate together. That way we're taking back some control of our life, right? And diversifying our income, and having a little bit of say in what we do, because I think, most of us have been taking orders from people for our entire adult lives, right? So this is the entrepreneurial side of it is really pretty exciting for us. And that's what we're trying to focus on.
Are you currently furloughed?
No, I escaped furlough just by like the hair of my chinny chin chin, right? So I was on like a reduced line, right? We call it a surplus reduction line. And that was throughout the late spring, all throughout the summertime, and then we were all prepping for it come October 1st, right? Like this is going to happen. And really, in the 11th hour, they finally came to this agreement and said, hey, nobody's going to get furloughed. You can, you'll have your job, but you're going to take at least a 50% pay cut, right, as a form of the MPG reduction per month. So for us at the time, we had already received our furlough letter in the mail. I've got that framed up on the wall, just looking at that for motivation, right? So, that has a lot of side effects and things that go into it. It's not just losing your job, right? It's oh gosh, what do we do with the kids? How do I support the family? So because of that, I've just been on a leave of absence, for gosh, about 7 or 8 months now, I guess at this point, and just really focusing 110% on Blue Nose, and it's been exciting, man. Like this is fantastic. I'm not sure. I don't really miss it right now. The airlines are just in a constant state of flux right now, so I'm just kind of keeping my distance and letting the dust settle a bit. And who knows, man? Maybe we just never go back to the airlines, right? Just do our thing, be our own boss, right? I mean, that's really kind of what I'm focused on right now, and providing that opportunity for other people too. So, yeah, escape furlough, but I'm on a leave of absence right now.
That's kind of the premise. Is in the potential despair that people can face with furlough, stress that it brings. We do the Furlough Friday podcast all under the Sky Pirates, and one of the first things we learned from the early episodes with some of our guests was they weren't in a good spot mentally.
Sure.
Scared, concerned, stressed. And the other co-host on that, he's also at your airline. He's got enough seniority to not be furloughed, but for whatever reason, he's been fortunate enough not to fly for several months as well. So we've been focusing a lot on this podcast. But there's opportunity out there, and not every aviator has the entrepreneurial bug or the capability to take risks. But for those that do have that interest, we want to talk to people who are taking those risks. So that's kind of where the opportunity hour came from.
Yeah.
Furlough Friday, we just sit around, drink, and BS the majority of it. We try to do 20% aviation, 80% BSing, and then we brought on another flight. We brought a furloughed flight attendant on, and she started her own podcast. She's actually a social media influencer.
Oh, no kidding! Really?
Helping us grow. But she's also doing a podcast where she interviews influencers within the aviation sector as well. She's had some flight attendants on. She's had some ground guys on, and just giving different perspective there, for people that are interested in growing their personal brand on social media. But the point of the whole thing, and the thing we're trying to highlight, is opportunity.
Yeah.
Whether or not people want to take advantage of it, I guess that's up to them for their own personal reasons. But for me, this is the exciting stuff. I've got a small business. We can talk about that offline later if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is the stuff I love, and that's why we're doing the podcast. It's like, why not do stuff that we enjoy?
Yeah.
In the meantime, so that's some impact or influence, I should say, on the name of your company. Is that correct?
Yeah. You were breaking up a little bit with the Wi-Fi signal, I think, but so you were talking about Blue Nose, right? And where it came from, is that correct? The name?
Yeah, Blue Nose. Yep.
Yeah. So that's kind of a nod to our time in the Navy, right? And for us, for those of us who aren't Navy folks, right? Like there's a number of different kind of like orders, if you will, right? So when you cross the equator for the first time, right, you go through a shellback ceremony. And so then you become a shellback, right? And then it's like folklore, right? This is like there's some Navy tradition there, and so really pretty cool stuff. But there's a number of different orders that you can achieve, not just shellback. Blue Nose is another one of those, right? So when you cross into the Arctic Ocean for the first time, or the Arctic Circle, I should say, then you actually become a Blue Nose. So for us, it was being based in Oklahoma, right? Like you hardly had the chance to ever do any of that stuff, right? It's like you're not crossing the equator anytime soon on a boat in Oklahoma. You're not having really the opportunity to cross into the Arctic Circle that often either. So that was kind of like this one thing that we were always kind of chasing after, right? Go get your Blue Nose, get something like that, because ultimately it's about, it became symbolic for us, right? I was trying to think of some way to, kind of give a nod to our military service, and right, and we're so proud of that. And a lot of our franchisees are veterans, or they're still in the reserves of the Guard in some capacity. So I think that's one of the kind of the unique angles that we're able to kind of bring to the equation. But I wanted to also like stick out, right? Like stick in people's minds, right? What is Blue Nose, right? I mean, that's kind of a bizarre name, right? But for us, it's symbolic of not only our military time, but also time, really time, achieving something that's hard to get, and I think if we can kind of keep that in the back of our head while we're going forward and building our own businesses and working together, maybe it's a good name. So we'll see, I guess. But that's where it started.
When you started Blue Nose, were you considering franchising from day one, or did you just want to start your own little personal side hustle there in Oklahoma?
Like the thought had actually crossed my mind, and it's a perfect business for franchising because first and foremost, it's really very affordable, right? Like, I mean, it's not like we're out renting or leasing a brick and mortar shop somewhere. Like, so there's the monthly overhead is very, very minimal. So one, it's affordable. Two, it's easily replicated, right? So I mean, we it's just a process, right? I mean, we got to have our Part 107 certification, right? We got to have a business filed, bank account set up, but that's really easy stuff. And for guys like us who are very much used to checklists and a rudiment, that type of regimented schedule, I should say, it's easy. It's a no-brainer. So within the franchising space, it really fits very well. So it had crossed my mind kind of from the outside, like, gosh, maybe we could do this. And I only started thinking about that when I was working with my website developer. He's like, hey, I put together this template for your site and I included a franchise page on there. What do you think? I'm like, well, gosh, like we just started last week kind of thing, so this seems a bit early, but I like where your head's at. So it kind of crossed my mind, and then ultimately we ended up just taking it off the website. We're like, I don't know, let's kind of feel it out a little bit at first. And then when we launched the site, like I said, and we had that much interest in it, it was like, all right, this is the way forward. This is easy. It's not easy, right? I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, but it makes a whole lot of sense within the franchise business model. So that's what we're doing. And for us, there's a couple other folks out there that are have like commercial drone operator networks that are out there, but that's not what we're doing, right? I mean, it's not like you're an individual contractor or something like that. You own your own business, truly. We're here to help you get set up. But I mean, you're setting your own hours. You're chasing down your own clients. I don't want to be in the weeds on that at all, right? Like this is yours, and you work as little or as much as you want, right? I mean, that's the whole goal. For some folks, it's just a side hustle. Other folks, it's a full-time gig, right? So whatever they want to do with it, it's totally up to them. So in that sense, I think that the franchise model just makes a whole lot of sense. So it was there kind of in the beginning, and then it really kind of took off there probably around March, April timeframe.
It looks like you offer a lot of support to new franchisees. Let's talk about that for a little bit and what you have to offer to help off the ground. What comes in the box, so to speak. I've seen your pictures on social media with your Blue Nose boxes, and curious what's inside there.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's just like you mentioned earlier. I think the lack of experience on a lot of our parts, right? We're coming from an aviation background, right? We're not necessarily, we don't have a business background or entrepreneurial streaks in us, right? So I think that's what prevents or deters a lot of folks from getting involved in setting up their own business, right? So the entire concept is to provide that type of support from day one, right? So literally it starts with a business in a box, right? So I mean, we in that box is your drone, it's your operating manual, it's your Blue Nose swag like we got on, right? It's business cards, it's everything that you need to really be up and running. So that's one aspect of it. And truly, I mean, the entire goal is to have that box show up on your doorstep and then you're up and running. There's a number of different training events, if you will, that go into it as well. And that's not only, throughout 2020, unfortunately, it's been largely virtual training because of COVID. But going forward, it's going to be face to face, especially when it comes to operating the drone for the first couple of times, getting used to that, and kind of building your proficiency. So there's going to be face to face, in person training on the drone, but there's also photography training as well, right? So it's one thing to go out there and capture a bunch of still photos and footage if that's what you're into, but it's a whole other thing to make sure that that's processed correctly and in a deliverable state, if you will, right? So we want to make sure that folks are at a minimum able to edit photos and realize that they've got support as well for videography, because that's a whole other ball of wax, right? I mean, that takes some real skill sets. There's equipment that's necessary. It's very time consuming. So the videography side is something that's not a required part of our package, but we do want to make sure that everybody knows that we've got videographers available to support them, right? So all the stuff that's on our website and our social media, that's footage that we've taken. But truly, I mean, he's the guy I grew up with. He's like a brother to me. He is a videographer, right? That's what his degree's in, is film editing. So I go out and capture the footage, transfer it over to him. He kind of puts it all together, and we just kind of refine it. So that's one aspect of it too, right? So it's not just help with setting up your LLC and getting in touch with legal counsel if you need it, or an accountant if you need it, or whatever it is. But it's the whole package, right? So operationally, it's making sure that we're minding our P's and Q's with in terms of regulations, right? Part 107 stuff, all that. Sometimes certain states will have different requirements to be a commercial drone operator. North Carolina is one of those states in particular. So it's not just the Part 107 certificate. There's some additional permits that are needed. So that's we're right there the whole way. And then going forward, once you're operational, it's about that type of collaboration, right? It's knowing that you're not out there by yourself, that you've got a whole other network of franchisees who are in the exact same boat that you are. They limited business experience, but we're all working towards something together, developing that brand name recognition, and reaching out to clients too, right? So it's not just it's also marketing, right? Like, what's going to be the most strategic play for our money, with whether it comes to national marketing campaigns or individual advertising to the benefit of that particular franchisee and their location. All that stuff is what we're trying to focus on, and make sure that people know that type of support is available, really from A to Z, right? Because that's like I said, I think that's where a lot of people get deterred from starting their own business, is that they just don't necessarily know what the next steps are, and then what do they do afterwards, right? Okay, great, now we're set up, but how do we continue? So there's an aspect of this where we're building a team, and a lot of people, like I said, like-minded, similar backgrounds who are motivated to get this off the ground. So that's what we're focused on, and I think going forward, there's a lot of opportunities out there for all of us, for all of our franchisees, in particular within some of our strategic partnerships, right? Whether those are software developers, whether those are experts within the aviation consulting field, right? I mean, so we've got partnerships again with another veteran-owned company down in Texas, who are kind of our regulatory relief partners, if you will, and they can help process waivers with the FAA. They actually wrote all of our operational manuals, training manual, SMS manual, stuff that we would be very accustomed to seeing with our aviation background. It's already in place, right? So that's part of what's included in that business in a box as well. It's not just a shirt and a drone. It's hey, you've got standardized manuals available, right? And that's going to be really critical when it comes to more of your advanced flight ops, right? Like flights above 400 feet and beyond visual line of sight. And that's really where the commercial drone space is going. There's so many opportunities out there, and the FAA understands that. They've been, I think most operators would consider the FAA to be a little bit behind the curve on this, and making sure that regulatory framework is established already. But they're catching up, right? And it's going to become more sophisticated as time goes on, right? I mean, some of these drones, I mean, they're getting huge, right? I mean, there's truly, like, type ratings are going to be a thing here in the future, and when you look at the drone delivery space as well, that's just booming. That's just taken off, right? So as those opportunities kind of flesh out more and more, it's the requirement for that type of standardization and training is going to be just absolutely critical. So that's what we've got right out of the gate. You know, we want to make sure that people know that, you know, that support is available.
Yeah, it sounds like, you're obviously giving them a process and streamlining the entire process from conception and or reaching out to you to the point where they're operational. Did you have any hurdles early, essentially force you to go deep in the gut and persevere, something that maybe you weren't sure if you were going to be able to overcome, um, you know, through intestinal fortitude, so to speak, were able to overcome it? Did you have anything that shut you down early on when you started this journey?
You know, the getting your own business set up is fairly straightforward, right? Like you could do this pretty quickly on your own. It doesn't take long. You can do this in an afternoon. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, you could find a number of different website developers out there who would be willing to put something together for you. And great. Now you've got a website, you've got your LLC filed, you can set up your own social media accounts. It's not rocket science, right? Where things got a little interesting and still present challenges is on the franchising side of it, right? There's a number of different regulatory aspects within, you know, the really just the franchise industry that you know you got to be paying attention to, and it's not just federally, right, but it's also on a state to state basis. So within franchise law, you've got states that are known as franchise registration states, like say California and Illinois and New York, you know, states like that. And then here in Colorado, we're considered a non-registration state, right? So it depends on where you're trying to operate in, and there are regular requirements for updates to our franchise agreement, and you know more specifically, what's known as the franchise disclosure document, right? So the franchise agreement is actually is an exhibit within the franchise disclosure document, and this is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. So you know that was it's great to be like, oh, you know, franchising, let's do it. You know, that sounds great. But you could really, I mean, there's quite a bit of legalese that's involved with doing that the proper way. And so that continuously poses a challenge on my end. And it's been interesting. I've learned a lot in the last, you know, 8 or 9 months about the franchise world. And what I've come to find is that, you know, it's a whole industry, right? I really had never thought of that, right? But like the franchising industry is an entire sector in and of its own right, you know. So pretty fascinating. And you know, the thing that's been, you know, there's aspects of that are just truly scare the crap out of me sometimes. Like, oh man, I got to make sure that we're doing this the right way, and you know, that takes time, that takes money, and you know, you got to be reaching out to lawyers and stuff, and that's okay, right? I think it's worth that much, you know. That's what we're doing, right? Like that's what we're investing in. But you know, the flip side of it is that it's so encouraging too. I think people who are involved in the franchising industry, you know, not aviation, nothing to do with drones, none of that, right? But just franchising. A lot of people are out there just ready to help, you know, and it's been really unique to kind of discover that because people are like, hey, you know, you should go talk to this company, and you know, let's put you in touch with this guy over here because you know they're ready to help you out, and they just want to see you succeed truly, you know. I mean, I think that's what's kind of unique about it, is that they want to help, right? And you know, I'm not used to that, so especially from a business perspective, it's like, gosh, I feel like everybody's out there just trying to figure out how to close the next deal and make some more money. But I think there's an aspect of this where, you know, it's that entrepreneurial bug, right? It's about controlling your future, right? It's about diversifying your income. It's about being your own boss, and man, that's exciting stuff. You know, just like you were talking about earlier, that's the stuff that I just don't want to get rid of. And the more and more that I see that, and I'm surrounded by it, the more and more I just want to be a part of that, right? I don't want to go be, you know, some widget in the machine, you know, just the wheel just turning, and I'm just there kind of putting out a product or a service for somebody else, right? I want to be my own boss, right? And I want other people to be their own boss, and that's where I think the franchise business model is just incredible, because we become interdependent on one another, right? When you do well, I do well. When I do well, you do well. So there's aspects of franchising that are truly that gut punch that you asked about. You know, it's like, ooh, man, we got to make sure that we're minding our P's and Q's for sure. But man, I think at the end of the day, it's extremely rewarding. So it makes it worthwhile for sure.
That's awesome about the real world is people really do want to see others succeed. Um, and while we're on this podcast and, it's quote unquote great content for me, like I want you to win. And that's like every guest I've had on here. I've tried to, put people together, hey, this person might be able to help you. This person, maybe you can help them type thing. And the side of it, the network effect, so to speak, is huge. And it's probably kind of like you said, it might be the only one of the few subcategories of people or careers or whatever where people truly do want to help.
Yeah.
In most scenarios without anything in return. It's a hell of a time to be alive,
Yeah.
And with that, you think about Google and YouTube, right? You probably had 100, 200 questions pop up early in your journey. How do I do this? How do I do that? And you get on the internet and you spend a half hour, an hour researching a specific question you had. And then you felt like a relative expert, right? And then you figured out, all right, I need to talk to this type of attorney. And whether it was through your personal connections or recommendations through the internet, like you're able to find who you needed. I can't imagine trying to do a startup in 1987. It's like the resources just weren't there. The infrastructure wasn't there. We've got all these social media platforms can market for next to nothing. There's definitely sweat equity involved, but from spending a bunch of money on a commercial, you don't need to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So we're fortunate with that.
No, you're totally right, man. It's I mean, I think that's what's so cool about it. Like again, coming from, it's a total shift in my personal career development, right? I mean, having spent 10 and a half years in the Navy, that's just not really part of what your thought process is, right? And then flying for the airlines, again, you're just one of thousands and thousands, right? Like you're just flying from point A to point B. Yep. and then it's fine. It's a great job when it's good, but man, when it's bad, it sucks, right? So, if there's a way that we can kind of mitigate that dynamic aspect of the airline industry and just provide other options for other people, however they see fit, right? And kind of package that as streamlined and as we can get. I mean, it's just fantastic, right? So I mean, you're kind of developing that mission buy-in because it's all them, right? It's just like you said, that sweat equity. We can do everything. We can do as much as we possibly can on our end, right? But at the end of the day, it's going to require some time, right? It's going to require time, and you're going to have to put forth some effort as well, and that's okay, right? And that's what we're here for, especially when you're seeing basically all of the fruits of your labor, right? I mean, this is just coming straight back to you, and that's what's huge. And just like you said, I mean, that network effect. It's true, I mean, it's something that I just had never really been exposed to within the franchising world, and there's so many people, and there's just like what you got going here with the podcast and social media aspects and marketing. I mean, there's people want to truly see you succeed because it's I think it's better for everybody, right? I mean, if we're able to kind of control that and take some of that, really see the fruits of your labor. I mean, I think that's one of those intangible aspects about entrepreneurship that are really, to me, so rewarding, right? And it's not just about making a buck, right? But it's about taking care of your family, right? It's about not having to worry if you've got the seniority to take vacation over the wintertime, right? It's like, well, no, it's like I got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. I don't want to. My seniority number shouldn't dictate whether or not I can have Christmas off, right? I mean, I feel like that's a lousy way to do things, right? So if I can work around that, if we can come up with a different solution to do that and help other people do that too, man, that's huge, right? I mean, that's just it's so worthwhile and something that we're really proud of.
Getting back to the franchise side of the house, you've kind of talked about what you offer in terms of getting the franchisee set up, and I want to talk about continuous support a little bit more. But before that, I come to you as a potential franchisee. What are you going to ask of me? Can we discuss startup costs? And, what expectations do you have from me going forward as a franchisee in terms of either production, quantity of production, quality of production, those types of things?
Yeah. And that's a great question, and it's really important, and I'm glad you asked it, because I feel like that's where we're really, Blue Nose is very unique in that sense, right? I mean, when you look at most franchise opportunities out there, like, I mean, it's going to cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get set up, right? I mean, I'd say, I don't know, probably $25,000 or more, probably, right? I mean, it's going to be a significant investment. And with what we're doing at Blue Nose, there's just no need for that, right? Like, it's not like we're opening up a sandwich shop or something like that. So, the initial franchise fee, that's a part of it. Like I said, it covers your drone, it covers your manuals, it covers all like the setup costs. And also, we incorporate a kind of a microsite into our webpage, right? So you've got a website really at your disposal right out of the gate, right? And that's some significant value as well, in addition to those manuals, right? Those manuals, those weren't cheap, right? So to have that available is huge. So there's aspects of what we try to do that cover the initial franchise fee. That I should say the initial franchise fees cover. And for us right now, that's $3,900, right? So we try to keep it very, very cheap and very affordable. We also provide a financing option as well, right? It's not like not everybody has, $3,900 just sitting around or just ready to just sign on a line, right? So we want to make sure that there's flexibility in that as well. So we have a finance option where you can, $2,000 up front, and then the remaining $1,900 is paid back over 12 months, no interest, right? Again, I'm not trying to rake anybody over.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean? But it's like
and drones included. It sounds like a pretty good deal.
I think so. But that's the whole strategy, right? Is that get as many people on board as we can. There's a window of opportunity right here. So expand as quickly as possible, obviously with an emphasis on quality and standardization, but develop that network fast, because it's coming, right? Like the drone industry is booming right now. So if we can do that, if we can get that in place and get, people with our backgrounds and our skill sets, like, oh yeah, we're all basically professional pilots. That's something huge, right? We can leverage that when it comes to, access to preferred vendors and suppliers, right? Setting up national contracts, things like that. So, that's one piece of it that's really, really important, I think, from kind of a more of a 30,000-foot strategy view, right? It's like that's what we're trying to focus on. So there's that initial franchise fee, right? Going forward, there's a tech fee that's in place it's a fixed fee on a month-to-month basis, right? Because we've got a business operations software platform that's available, and that's client relation management, it's quotes, it's invoicing, it's scheduling, nothing to do with the drone at all. So that costs money to host that, right? So that's where that tech fee comes into place, and also website.
Is that mandatory or optional?
It is, yeah, that is mandatory, right? So we want to make sure that we're all operating on the same system. So there is a centralized 100%. Operating system in place. So there's a tech fee in place right now that's $195 per month. That's it, other than the royalty fee, right? But the royalty fee is based off of your gross monthly sales. So if you don't do anything in the course of a month, maybe it's because you're in the reserves or the guard or something like that, and you get activated, and you've got no time to devote to Blue Nose. Well, that's totally fine, right? Like this is what this is here for. We want to provide that flexibility. So no sales, no royalty fee, right? That's 6%. So it's like I said, based off of gross monthly sales, 4% goes towards franchise development, 2% goes to our advertising contribution, right? So you're getting that back on the back end, right? So that's going towards national marketing campaigns. It's going to advertising for your individual franchise location. So that's it, right? It's the initial franchise fee, it's the tech fee on a month-to-month basis, and then it's a royalty fee. And so we really try to keep it as affordable and flexible for people as possible. And here's the thing that's unique about it, I think, is that there's no sales quotas, there's no revenue requirements at all, right? So that's if it's just not something that's working for you, then that's fine. Maybe that month is not good for you. Maybe you're going back to the training center to get called up on the next plane or whatever it is, that's okay. You don't need to hang up the business. Just keep it there, kind of existing in perpetuity, right? So that's why we're keeping our monthly overhead costs to a bare minimum. So that's really what it's all about. It's keeping those costs low, providing that type of flexibility for people, and then just working together. Building it together.
This is obviously a ending play for you too, to spread the name across the U.S. Let's say I'm Tyler's real estate agency, and I need some real estate imagery taken. Are they going to reach out to Blue Nose headquarters, you, or are they going to reach out to the individual franchisee in that scenario?
Absolutely. Either way, right? So they could contact me directly, and then I'm going to put them in touch, with Tyler, right? It's like, yep, this is your guy. This is our local franchisee in that area. Or they could go to our locations page, and every franchisee, this is again part of the tech fee, right? That's where that goes towards, is hosting the website. And so that every franchise location has their own micro site on our central bluenoseaerial.com page, right? So you go to locations, there's
Okay, yep.
There's our guy in Renton, Washington. You can click on his location. There's his phone number, there's his email address, these some of the services that he's providing. And likewise, all the franchisees have that available as well, right? So they could do it either way. Contact us directly, at corporate, if you will, or just reach out directly to the franchisee.
So because your name is on this with your franchisees as well, in protecting the brand, I assume there's a certain expectation in terms of quality. And you mentioned earlier that you have a videographer. Is that videographer at the disposal of your franchisees? Is it part of the package? If I start my own franchise, can I utilize my own videographer? How does that work?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a question we get a lot. And so that videographer that I've been using is absolutely available to all of our franchisees, and like I said, he went to school for that. That's what his background is in. And he's got a full team of other videographers available to support Blue Nose as well. So absolutely, my concern is quality assurance, brand recognition, having those standards in place, just like any franchise, right? I mean, we're not going to Chick-fil-A and buying a Big Mac kind of thing, right? So that's
Right.
It's really critically important, and that's not just my concern. All the franchisees ought to be concerned about that as well, right? So they're like, no, we're all offering the same services, and we need to be providing them at a very high quality as well. So from a videography standpoint, yep, we've got folks available to support you in that sense. The other side of it, some folks want to get into that, right? Like they've got the computer kind of horsepower available, they've got the time, they've got the skill sets to make that happen. So some of them are doing it on their own. A lot of guys will have their spouses actually involved too, right? And some of their spouses have a background in interior design or photography or whatever it might be. So it's kind of like a family thing, which is just fantastic, right? It's just amazing to see that type of involvement. So that's one angle. The other side of it too is like you could go find a videographer in your local area and have them do it too, right? So kind of three ways that you could go about it. I think the thing that I want to stress though about that is that you're not absorbing those costs, right? Like as the commercial drone operator, it's not like you're paying, this guy and that's just a sunk cost. Those costs are transferred down, right? Like that's built into the quote that you provide your client. Whether that's, hey, this is a quote from a Blue Nose videographer, or, my spouse, or a local videographer, whatever it might be, that cost is then, translated and transferred over to the quote that you provide your client. So there's a number of different options that you could do, different ways that you could go about it, but that's generally how it's done. Until we get to the point where, I think later down the line we're going to have, some real significant infrastructure in place to provide that, right? Whether that's software platforms to do that, maybe that's some aspect of like a white labeling with Blue Nose or something along those lines, or have videographers on staff potentially who could provide that type of training. That's a little bit down the line. Hope maybe later in 2021. But right now, it's like I said, it all comes back to keeping it affordable for people and providing that type of flexibility.
I'm sure the number one question you always get is, is how much can I make doing this? But I'm sure uh, there is no cut and dry answer. I'm sure there are many, many factors involved. But you mentioned invoicing. Do you, um, I assume you provide some sort of guidance to give them a baseline to work off of. And I'm sure that different industries have different price structures, different complexities involved that affect the price. And I'm sure it's even location dependent as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you completely, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, everything you just said is exactly correct. So I get that question all the time. There's aspects of it from a projected revenue standpoint that I'm legally not allowed to talk about, right? So that's something that I can get in trouble with. But you know, anybody can go out there and Google hourly drone rates for commercial pilots, right? And what you'll find more often than not is that's typically about 150 to 250 per hour. But it depends on the service, it depends on the sector that you're selling in, and it also depends on the location that you're operating in, right? So, you know, if you're just going out for, hey, I just need 10 photos for a real estate shot, right? We just want to put them up on, you know, Zillow or Redfin or something like that. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. You know, that's kind of the low hanging fruit of the drone space. And one, it's just not a ton of money in there. Generally speaking, I actually recommend people to steer away from that because it's super saturated, right? I mean, the residential real estate market is just tapped for drone pilots right now. I mean, people are doing that in house. They've got a drone guy or something like that. So I think it's an easy place to start. It's challenging to get any type of real revenue from that. It's like I said, it's pretty basic. It's not very technically complex. So, you know, I generally say if you're gonna start in that space, start looking into something a bit more robust than that, right? Like try to figure out a way to specialize because you know, I'll never forget it. One of the kind of a business mentor of mine is like, you know, there's riches and niches. That's what he told me, you know, months and months ago. And I was like, yeah, man, that's true. And I think it's especially applicable within the commercial drone operator space because there's just so many avenues that you could go down. And there's thousands and thousands of drone pilots out there right now who are trying to get involved and trying to make their way. But it's not, you know, I mean, there's a ton of competition because of it, right? Like if I'm a 16-year-old, I can go get my Part 107 certificate and buy a drone at Best Buy, and then you know we're up and running. And they're, you know, in theory, they're your competition. So how do you stand out from them, right? Like, well, it's not only because we've got a Part 107 certificate, but we're also professional aviators. We've got standardized training in place. We've got manuals in place. We've got national contracts in place. You know, and it's a number of those different things. But yeah, it depends on the market. It depends on the service that you're providing. You know, it's a lot of different things that kind of go into that. But again, to your point, yeah, we have a plans and pricing guide that, you know, we'll send out to clients, we'll send out to prospective franchisees just to kind of give them an idea of what it is that we're looking at, and you know, not necessarily potential earnings, but just what's expected, I think, within the commercial drone space. And all of those numbers, all those the numbers that are in our plans and pricing guide, that's already preloaded into our business operations platform. So when you sign on, great. Now we've got access to our own individual portal, right? So I can track all of my clients. I've got my own products and services that I can modify, I can get rid of, I can add to, I can apply discounts, I can adjust those prices as I see fit as my own business operator, right? Like this is your location, right? These are your clients. So you've got that type of autonomy to be able to flex those prices as you see fit. And you know, a lot of times I think in the beginning, especially, you know, some folks are out there doing like pro bono jobs, right? And that's completely, I think, appropriate, right? I mean, you're refining your concept, right? Like you're going through the process and making sure that you've got it all squared up. Or you know, maybe it's a significantly, you know, reduced or discounted rate. And this is, you know, potentially a client that's going to be providing repeat business for you. That's completely appropriate, right? That's to be expected, and you probably ought to be doing that. I think that's good business sense.
I think a lot of people undervalue the word free.
Yeah.
Especially when trying to get a business off the ground.
It's huge. You know, I think
goodwill goes a long way in showing what you got.
Oh, you're totally right. I think you're totally correct. You know, and it establishes rapport, right? It develops that type of connection with your clients, right? It for us as content creators, it's enabling us to develop a portfolio, right? And that's just going to continually provide, greater opportunities for us going down the line, right? It's like, well, man, okay, yeah, they're not just taking pictures of houses, right? But they're taking like orthomosaic maps of a construction site. They're out there flying a farmer's field, and identifying hot spots in their field where, man, they got some pest issues over here, some irrigation problems. They're putting out 3D models, right? Like whatever it might be. If you have the ability to not, to just gain that experience, that's value in and of itself, right? You're not going to be crushing checks like right out of the gate. It takes a little bit of time to get it off the ground. But man, to do that, that free aspect of it, you're talking about underestimating the value of the word free. There's so much truth in that, right? And I think it's almost, I almost don't know how you do it without doing that in the beginning, right? It's like you gotta flex a little bit, right? You gotta know you gotta refine your operation. You gotta make those clients, you gotta get those clients talking about your product and your service to their friends, right? So it's developing that type of cycle, and a lot of that comes into this.
People are a lot more forgiving too. People are a lot more forgiving
Yeah.
too if they're not paying a premium. And make your mistakes. Do a handful of jobs for free. Make your mistakes there. You learn a lot in the process, and people tell their friends, "Hey, man, this dude just did this for free. Check it out." And then they see the next project, and it's getting better and better every time. So, definitely.
I think you're totally right. I mean, it's just like going to the sim, right? Like we're training up. We're not all just gonna fly the ILS down to minimums every time like perfectly. So yeah, go do that. Go practice it. It's going to take a little bit of time to kind of become proficient with your craft. So yeah, go work on it, and the next time it's going to be that much better. And then shortly thereafter, you're going to be operational and cashing checks and snapping necks, right?
Heck yeah. You just briefly were discussing agriculture, the sector of agriculture a bit ago. That seems like a very lucrative option of the industries that I've seen so far. And this is pure speculation. I have no insight whatsoever, but when I think about the possibilities there, and I'm quite certain probably the drones required and the equipment required is also dramatically more expensive, but that seems a lot of opportunity in that sector. And looking at what's out there, like you said, the real estate market seems to be quite saturated. And obviously outside looking in, I have no idea, but it seems like that is an unsaturated sector of the market with a lot of opportunity going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're exactly correct. And personally speaking, when I'm operating here in the Denver, Colorado area, I'm focused primarily on commercial marketing and precision agriculture. And that's because I feel like those are, opportunities that are, one, you can charge a premium for them, truly, to be straight up. I mean, it's not like we're just going to go snap 10 photos for a realtor, right? Like this requires expertise. This requires, a bit of artistry, if we're talking, marketing. It requires some no kidding technical understanding within the precision agriculture space. So to kind of get back to what I was saying about riches and niches, once my, my buddy told me that, I was like, man, you're totally right. I got to figure out a way to, kind of focus our scope a bit. And for me, I think that's agriculture, right? And the technology is there where you can provide a ton of data and imagery for folks. I think where it becomes particularly specialized is making sense of that, right? It's quantifying that data, making that like actionable intelligence for, a farmer, if you will, right? So that's where there's kind of that last 10 to 15% of the equation that comes into play. That's really pretty critical. And you're not going to find everybody just being able to do that, right? So that's where that type of specialization comes into play. You'd be surprised, I think, what you can do with some of these drones that are just straight off the shelf, truly. I mean, the drone that's a part of our franchise package right now is the DJI Mavic 2 Pro, and that is largely considered to be, far and away like the flagship drone of entry level commercial operations, right? A prosumer drone, if you will, right? Professional consumer kind of thing. So it straddles the line between hobbyists and enterprise level drones. So it's kind of right there in the middle, and you can do a ton with it. It's not only got a fantastic camera. It can take amazing photos and videos, but you can take that imagery and depending on what type of software you're using, you can upload that and then apply different algorithms to it. For example, within agriculture, and you can say, man, okay, we're looking at this from a grower's perspective. Like, well, what is this imagery telling me? Well, it might be you've got some water issues, right? You've got pest issues. Maybe we need to put down some different fertilizer over here, whatever it might be. That precision agriculture structure has been around for decades, right? And it used to be manned aviation, right? Like guys flying around taking pictures of a field. Transitioned over to satellite imagery, right? Well, they all have different limitations, right? It's expensive, first of all. If you're flying a plane over the field, it's going to be very expensive to do that. Satellites, again, not exactly cheap. There's also some coverage issues there, right? It's not like I can just get a satellite overhead whenever I want it, right? So there's in some of these, some of these, depending on what you're growing and the time of the season that you're growing, time is critical, right? It's very much of the essence. You want to try to optimize that harvest time, right? So if I got to wait another week for the satellite to come overhead and then we're processing it, that could potentially really impact my yields, right? So that's a concern. Whereas drones they're revolutionizing the agricultural space in particular, because it's easy to get, I should say, right? You can find this technology available. It's on demand, right? Like you can just call up a drone operator and they can be out there, 30 minutes from now, right? Whatever it might be. And that imagery can be processed and analyzed very, very quickly afterwards. So all of that said, you're providing that type of analysis for farmers in a number of different fields, right? It's not just your traditional agriculture like corn and wheat and soy, things like that. You can really start to drill down pretty further into some non-traditional agriculture, if you will, and all that science is still the same, right? It's all photosynthesis and chlorophyll, and they need that type of insight just as much as somebody growing corn or wheat or something like that, right, in the Midwest. So to be able to provide that, I think that's where there's some real significant opportunities, and that's something that I'm focused on, right? And I want to make sure that all of our franchisees are looking at that. It might not be up their alley, it might not be in their wheelhouse. Maybe they live in right in the middle of this downtown, and it's just not what they're going to be able to do. But definitely something to consider. I think there's some real opportunity there. So I'm excited about that going forward. And there's room to develop, I think, some intellectual property aspects there, right? Some of our own custom software. That's what I'm looking towards. Maybe the end of 2021, right? Starting to kind of lay the foundation for some of that stuff. So there's a lot that you can check out within agriculture for sure.
One thing we haven't touched on too much is, and it seems like that's probably one of the most important aspects of this business in particular. Not only do you require marketing, but you are a marketing vessel for a lot of other companies potentially. Is it correct that part of your franchise fee goes to a marketing fund?
Absolutely.
Is that a thing, or is that still a thing? I don't remember I don't know if I read that or if I heard it on one of the podcasts you did or what. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
That's true. That's accurate. So that's where your monthly royalty fee goes towards a part of it, right? So it's a 6% monthly royalty fee based off of your gross monthly sales. 2% of that 6 goes into, no kidding, a separate account for advertising only, right? This is an advertising contribution. It's completely different account from our franchise development, right? So and that's required to be that way. That's legally required to be that. So that's unique in the sense that, all right, well, I'm receiving that as well, right? So the more that I do here in Denver, it's going to be beneficial to guys in Florida, right? And the more that they do, it's going to be beneficial for guys in Washington and California and Ohio, right? So we're all pitching in, right? So it is kind of like this collective mindset, almost like a co-op, right? Truly, I mean, we're all putting forth a little bit each month to the benefit of all of us, right? And on top of that, kind of again to answer your question, we're content creators at the end of the day, right? We're capturing photos, we're capturing that footage, we're developing that type of imagery, and we're primarily selling to other businesses, right? So this is largely B2B stuff, right? And what's important about that is that any business that I'm approaching, to try to sell a service to, they've got a website, right? They've got a social media presence. They need that type of content on a regular basis, right? They're trying to develop their own brand, right? And reach different clients on their own accord. So when we can do that, and we're doing this just by virtue of the fact that this is what we do, one, we're enhancing our own advertising for Blue Nose, right? Like we're getting the name out there, developing our own brand name recognition. But we're also we're providing that type of content for our clients, and we become, that much more sticky, if you will, right? Like they go, whoa, yeah, we know what you did in the springtime. We need you back in the fall, kind of thing, right? So if we become, integrated within their process and the way that they conduct their operations, man, that's just beneficial for us all throughout the country, right? And that's really what we're trying to get to.
About a little more than an hour into this, so don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I'd really like to know, what does a typical day look like for you? Right now, obviously, you're not flying every day, but the expectation is you will go back to flying here eventually. How do you manage the family, the flying, Blue Nose, and within the Blue Nose side of it, what does your day look like in terms of priorities, whether it's trying to find new franchisees, doing your own drone work, franchisee support? Let's talk about that a little bit, and then we'll wrap up here.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Nobody's ever asked me that before, actually, and it's man, I tell you, like I said, the dumpster fire of 2020 really just flipped everything on its head, right? I mean, actually, I was coming back from Munich, Germany on March 12th on my IOE check ride, right? And that was the day that they announced the European travel restriction. And everything after that just completely fell apart. So that was the last time I flew, right? I mean, that was it, and I never consolidated on the 757 or the 767 fleet. And it wasn't an option. So to go from, flying across the ocean, being gone, 3-4 nights a week, to you're not going anywhere. And oh, by the way, your toddlers, their school is shut down too. So you got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old that you're taking care of, as well as supporting, my spouse works full time as well. So, it's like, wow, this really shifted gears on me in a hurry. So, March and April, that was a pretty challenging time. It was for everybody. And I think, the unique aspect of it is that we're trying to adapt. Everybody's trying to adapt to the new realities of COVID and what that looks like going forward. So yeah, maybe we go back to flying, professionally for a living, and maybe that is our full-time gig. I hope that we can get to the point where we're then faced with a pretty hard choice, right? Well, should I do that, or can I just keep running my own business? That's what I'm focused on. I want to get to that point where we have a really difficult decision to make. All that said, the way that we've structured Blue Nose is truly to support, a professional pilot's lifestyle. Absolutely, 100%. That's where it started from. That's where it will continue to be. So in the event that you do go back to, flying full time, and you're out crossing the pond and flying all over the place, and that's totally fine, right? And the days that you have off, that's when you can do, work with Blue Nose if you want to. Again, no sales quotas, no revenue requirements. So it's totally it's entirely your prerogative, right? You've got that autonomy. You've got that control over your schedule. For me, it started with kind of refining the process, getting smart, with some of the technical sides of the drone, making sure that the business was set up correctly. That's where it started, trying to develop that portfolio and that client list. you know, in full disclosure, I'm hardly ever flying the drone anymore. I'm primarily focused on building the franchise, right? That is all I've been doing for probably 6 or 7 months now. And I tell you, that's, for me personally, I love it. It's just so exciting to just be able to chat with folks and just talk about, you know, what the opportunities that we have with Blue Nose, and to learn about their backgrounds and what's driving them, what's motivating them. You know, so for me, I love that. And you know, the other side of it too is developing those strategic partnerships. I mean, that is the stuff that gets me so excited, because, you know, if I can get something that's set up on a national basis, you know, and we've got several strategic partners who are in place for that, like right now, you know. And if you go to our website, bluenoseaerial.com, you'll see some of those partners in place there at the footer. And that's where, you know, we're really trying to provide that type of turnkey solution, not only from a business development standpoint right out of the gate, but also once you're operational, to have those potential clients available immediately, right? So that's, you know, that's super critical for us. But a day-to-day basis, it's usually waking up about, you know, 6:30 or so. Like, we got a 2-year-old running into the room. He's like, "Hey, Dad, I got a dirty diaper," you know. So it's keeping things in check, you know, with the house. It's balancing, you know, it's a lot of email traffic right now. So it's about reaching prospective franchisees. You know, we're getting a lot of interest, and it's just so exciting to see that and reach out to people and you know, do podcasts and stuff. I mean, it's just amazing. So it's kind of this balance, this juggling act between, you know, keeping our toddlers safe and, you know, not murdering themselves, and then also, you know, taking phone calls and emails and making sure that we're providing that type of ongoing support that, you know, we want to make sure that we're making that happen. You know, and then it's probably back to the office, you know, once the kiddos go down for bed. You know, it's like 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. We're heading back to the office and firing off emails and, you know, trying to reach out to people and sending off invoices and quotes, things like that. So it's been busy, you know, it's been very busy. It's my father-in-law told me this one quote a few months back, and he's like, "Hey, you know the great thing about owning your own business is that you can choose which 80 hours of the week you work, you know." So, there's a lot of truth in that, and that's okay though. Because
I was just gonna say, you work 80 hours a week for yourself, so you don't have to work 40 hours a week for somebody else.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. It's okay if I'm putting in 60, 80 hours a week, because that's the control that I have. I can control my schedule. I can dial it back. I can dial it up as much as I see fit. You know, it's like that. You're not going to be able to do that if you're working for somebody else, right? So the entrepreneurial aspect of it is time consuming. It's exciting. It's exhausting sometimes, you know, but man, it's just thrilling to be able to do this right now, especially coming from a background where that was never an option, you know, for a lot of us, right?
Sure.
And then to be able to work with other people who are like-minded and trying to get this off the ground, you know, pretty amazing. We got a great opportunity, I think.
As we wrap up, is there anything that I didn't ask that you wished I would have touched on that you'd like to talk about, close it out?
You know, one of the questions that we get a lot is, you know, this kind of get a bit more into the weeds, I guess, within the actual franchise agreement. So part of what, you know, we talk about within the paperwork is you actually have an exclusive territory, right? And that's very common within franchising. Within drones, it's kind of like, well, why do I need an exclusive territory if I'm going to be chasing clients down all over the place, right? So it's not, it's something that, it's a question that I get asked a lot, and you know, to kind of explain a little bit more about that. So your initial franchise fee goes towards a 100,000 person exclusive territory, right? So that's typically based around your residence, right? I mean, you're operating a business out of your home. So we kind of massage the boundaries of your area, and that's all. It's an estimate, right? It's not an exact science, but you know, that's there as a protection for the franchisee. They should then know that, you know, there's no other Blue Nose franchisee who will ever be working within their territory. The critical part about this, though, that's really, really important, I think, to grasp, is that that's not to say that you're confined to your territory, right? Like, go beyond that, go chase down clients, you know, in different areas of the state, different areas of the country, right? That's what it's all about, is finding those clients. So that's a protection in place for franchisees. But it is not meant there to confine them by any means. you've also got the ability in our agreement to purchase additional territory if you want. At this point, it's not. I don't know if it's really necessary, to be honest, but it's there. If you want to own, the northern half of Indiana, you can do that, right? So it's there's language in our agreement to do that, but it's not. That's a bit further down the line, but that's an aspect of it that we didn't really touch on yet. But the other side of it that I think is really pretty important, and that means a lot to us, is that so many of us are coming from a military background. It's not we're right now we're all coming from a professional aviator background, right? Well, I mean, whether that's 91, 61, 121, whatever it is, 135, we have similar skill sets and backgrounds. But I think, one of the things that we're really proud of the most is that it's, not only a veteran-owned business, but a lot of the strategic partners that we work with are also veteran-owned businesses, right? So in that sense, it's really something that we try to focus on, like veterans helping veterans, and providing those opportunities for people to take back a little bit of control over their life and support their family and diversify their income and look to the future a bit and try to control that as best they can. So that's an aspect, kind of one of our intrinsic values, I think, that's really important and that we're pretty proud about.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited about what you guys are doing. I wish you the best in 2021. Hopefully, later on in 2021, maybe we can get back on and see where the company is at that point. Because the one thing I've learned in this whole process is things change. When you get to know the market a little bit better, opportunities pop that you wouldn't expect, and all of a sudden you're a completely different company. So regardless, I want to stay in touch, but this was fun. Good luck, and I wish you the best.
Tyler, man, it means a lot to be able to have this opportunity. I mean, it's a great way for us to kind of develop our exposure and reach out to different people who might be interested and potential clients as well, right? So it means a bunch to be able to be here and spend some time with you. So I appreciate your time, and I'd love to come back on again, later in 2021 or whenever you'll have me. It's just a blast. So it's great to connect with you, man. And cheers to 2021, right? Here's hoping we can put 2020 in the rearview mirror and never think about it again.
Exactly. All right, man. Good luck with everything.
All right. Thanks, Tyler. Take care.